Planning a wedding comes with timelines, trends, expectations, and a whole lot that couples never see coming. We're two wedding planners pulling back the curtain on what really happens behind I Do. Each week on Behind I Do, we bring you real talk about real weddings, timelines, trends, the wins, and the what ifs. From the smooth as silk celebrations to the did that actually just happen moments, we're sharing the stories, lessons, and insider knowledge that help couples plan with confidence and maybe even laugh along the way. Whether you're a bride, groom, vendor, or wedding lover at heart, this is your backstage pass to the world of weddings, told candidly, graciously, and with the expertise only seasoned planners can offer. Grab your coffee, your planning binder, and your confetti, and join us behind I Do.
Welcome to episode 13. It takes a vendor village.
Sure does. Yeah, I mean, we've talked, I think, a little bit. I think the last one we did was about like hiring friends versus real vendors. So we touched a little bit on these things, but we thought we would just kind of dive deeper into why it's so important to have a strong vendor team and how it can really, change, or I guess affect your wedding for the better by having really good vendors.
Yeah, I think people get really caught up in like the design and the strategic, like how are things going to look and how, what will this sign look like with the welcome sign and the florals and all of that. And those are the really fun details of your wedding. But if you don't have a really good vendor team that works well together, or you kind of cheap out on like one or two like key players, like a DJ or someone who can't MC throughout the night, your guests feel it more than you would think. So it's something that we always try to recommend to our clients is and is part of why our planning process works the way we do, where we don't focus on design until later in the planning, because we want to make sure like all the boring vendors are booked and you get all this
not the boring vendors, but the boring part of wedding planning,
which is booking all your vendors before you get to the like fun, pretty Pinterest place.
Yeah. Like it's important to, like Allie said, like kind of spend money in those areas. And like, that's why it's nice. Cause then it's like, once your vendors are booked, then you know what's left in your budget for, the extra stuff, all the pretty stuff. Yeah. Cause like Allie said, at the end of the day, your guests are going to remember the feeling of your wedding or like the disorganization of your wedding over like the color of napkin that you picked.
Yes, always. And we hear from so many like brides that were in weddings that were like, I could just tell it was so chaotic and disorganized. And you feel that as a guest too. Like if you don't know where you're going or where you're supposed to be, or there's like a lack of communication from the guest standpoint too, you totally feel that. Yeah. It's like just an awkward wedding.
For sure. Agreed.
So we want to avoid that for you.
And I think it's hard because I think a lot of the times the couples, they hire these vendors and they think it's fine and whatever. And they're like, but they don't get to see like us, the team of vendors working together. So I think that's, I just had my first meeting with this planning couple for next year. And it's like, we were talking about DJs. DJs is always like, I feel like such a hot topic. And they're like, like there's, my mother found some DJs that were like super affordable, like $1,000 or whatever. And it's like, I told them, I was like, I'm not saying that they can't be good at what they do, but like for sure, having good vendors, like at the end of the day, really like helps your planner for sure. And just everybody, because we all like work so well together. And so it's hard for couples, I think, to sometimes understand that, because they're like, they don't get to see that part during the day when they're getting ready and like stress free, which is like our goal. But like, they're not getting to see the behind the scenes of us, like having to communicate a lot together and like, be like, hey, we're actually like 10 minutes behind, like, doing all those things together. So I think that's where it's sometimes just, it's hard for couples because like, well, but they're so expensive or whatever. And so it's like a good conversation that we have a lot with our couples in the first meetings is like, it doesn't need to be the most expensive vendor. And that's not what we're saying, but it's to have a good, solid, like DJ, photographer, caterer, like that works well with other vendors does make the day so much smoother, even if you aren't necessarily seeing it as the couple, but it makes your other vendors a lot happier.
Yeah. And I think even I've had typically like brides' moms say like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you recommended X. I can see why now. And it's like Jane said, it's hard for us to explain that relationship behind the scenes of the wedding day But when we work with a vendor that we've recommended, say Horsewood as a caterer, like we know that the food will be fantastic and your guests will talk about how good the food was at your wedding forever. And we know that they're going to show up when they said they were going to show up and they're going to bring what they said they were going to bring. And like, it's a weight off of us that allows us to focus on your wedding instead of being like, oh gosh, it's a new catering truck. I hope they have what they need.
Hope they don't run out of food.
Yeah. Hope they don't run out of food. Hope they don't run out of propane. Like if they're cooking your pizzas like in the back, like we've had all sorts of crazy things happen. So it does help lower everyone's stress when it's a team that's kind of worked together, knows how each other works.
Yeah.
And it's fun when you have rapport with the DJ and you can be like, we're going to be 10 minutes late. You're going to have to hold off. And it's fun and funny instead of like being like, hey, like Mr. DJ, sorry, I've never met you. This might.
Right. Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't annoy you. Or the caterers, especially like, we need an extra 30 minutes. We're running behind. So it definitely helps the overall like tone and feeling of the day just being more cohesive and friendly and more of like a team environment. So
agreed,
that's why we recommend our vendors.
Yeah. Why we have a preferred vendor list.
Yes.
So I mean, like we said in our last podcast, the things that kind of make good vendors, we'll kind of just dive through that, like what makes a good vendor team. And obviously the first thing in our books, I always say is communication. Like communication is key, and like figuring out, again, like we said, like what is your communication style?
Response time.
Yeah. If you're very A-type, like that kind of stuff, like just really. And I think too, especially if you're, spending a good amount of money on vendors, like, and they're not super like responsive, like, I mean, I would be pissed. So I think that's where it's like having good vendors that are going to follow up with you on time and like communicate well is super important.
Yes. I think being able to work with vendors that you respect and like enjoy working with is always like a good start to your vendor team. So especially if you've worked with them and you've had great experiences, like we said, it's easier to recommend, but then it makes a more cohesive team.
Yeah.
Altogether.
Yeah. And that's why I think too, we always recommend like meeting with multiple vendors in those areas, but just like to get a really good vibe of like, oh yeah, I like you. I feel like we're going to work well together, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, another, I don't know, big thing for us, what makes a good vendor team is like vendors staying in their lane. And I think sometimes it's hard because like we've noticed there's still a lot of weddings that don't have coordinators or planners. So our job usually falls on the DJs and photographers. And so sometimes it's hard when we are then there, because then some vendors have a harder time like working with a coordinator because they're used to doing their job. So I think that's what's nice when we're at a wedding and it's vendors that we've worked with a lot and we have a really good rapport. And that means that we are all going to stay in our own lane. And that could even be on us too. Like I know there's planners, or I'm sure sometimes where we've overstepped, and it's like, that's what's nice when it's like a DJ we've worked with a ton, or again, like a caterer or photographer, like we're better at staying in our lane because we know like, okay, they're going to do their job. We're going to do our job, but we also can still help each other.
Yeah.
Like
we're always working together.
Yeah.
Like if someone runs out of time, like for example, we had a huge wedding in Sun Valley. We only had 2 hours to set up, and like we were running low on time to like light all the candles. So the floral team had like tons of extra hands. So like those sort of things are like helpful.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't want you to stay in your own lane now.
Yeah, I want you to help me light the candles. Yeah. Or like sometimes, there's only one photographer and they don't have a second shooter. So we've sometimes been the person who has a list of like photos. So then we help get the next group ready to help the photographer out. But again, it's like, it's that conversation of like, do you want us to help? Like, we're happy to do it. If not, like, but again, like that's what's nice when you have that rapport when your vendors have that rapport with each other, is they can kind of, again, stay in their own lanes, but like help each other as needed, or like, when the DJ needs to go eat dinner or whatever, or, we can kind of help
release tables. Like, and that's one where it's always like, whose lane is it?
Yeah.
If we love to release tables just because we want to make sure that it's done in a way that follows like the families, like is it the bride and groom's parents? Like, are there elderly people that we should make sure get fed first? Like we want to follow those cues, and we might know the family better than the DJ had the opportunity to. So that's always one where it's like, whose job is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it's a good DJ, we can say like, hey, we'd love to release tables unless you have a better idea, or it's important for you to do it.
Right.
And then if they, some DJs do GoPros during dinner time or something like specific. And it's like, okay, if you want to do that and the couple's happy with that, like you go for it.
Right.
We'll stay in our lane tonight.
Yeah. I mean, that's usually one that I have a hard time letting go of.
But it's good to try.
But yes, but again, it's like having that conversation and respecting each other enough to be like, you know, yeah, if you and the bride and groom already agreed to like do the GoPro table release thing, that's fine.
Or photos with every
whatever it is, that's totally good. But, you know, yeah, again.
Another thing we like definitely makes it easier to work with your vendor team is when you trust each other's expertise. And I think give each other the space like to do their job too. I think part of that of staying in your own lane is not like micromanaging other vendors. And that's a huge responsibility on our end that we try to keep in mind, is that like when we trust the photographer to get the bride back into the bridal suite by 4 p.m., like I don't need to be double checking and like micromanaging her timeline, which just helps when you know people.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't feel the need to micromanage everyone.
Yeah. And I think it just helps us all be a little calmer because there's not that stress. And I think that's the hard part, because as the planner, I feel like we are like the one who like oversees every aspect of the wedding. And so sometimes, you know, staying in our lane, it's like, you know, we want to be respectful, but we still have to like know what's going on in every lane. But it's like when we know that it's like, again, all these vendors that like we have mutual respect and like trust them, like it makes it calmer and like allows us to be more so in our lane and not have to worry about, like Allie said, like, you know, things happening correctly or on time or whatever. It just makes everyone feel more at ease, which then again, I think translates into like the guest experience, because all your vendors are like calm and like working together and smiling and not like stressed running
like
around.
catty towards each other. Like we've seen plenty of that where like the bar staff and the catering staff like isn't getting along and like they're all trying to use the same working space and it's just a little
or
awkward.
like video and photo, like if they're different companies and it's like, I mean, that's like huge, like making sure there's that respect there with those two. Like, you know, they're not like, because there has been times where it's like they don't know each other or they're not really like communicating well, and we can kind of sense the tension, and it's like, it's
or like
awkward.
during ceremony, sometimes they're not like in sync, and like the photographer's walking backwards like into the videographer. Okay, I can tell you guys haven't worked together and like didn't talk through this. Like, where are you gonna mostly stand? Where can I mostly stand? Like, how can we both capture everything that we want together?
Which again, I think that's what comes with finding those good vendors that are a little more experienced and like have that great communication piece and like have mutual respect for other vendors. I think that's sometimes where it's hard when you hire new vendors. Again, not there's anything wrong with that, but new vendors or vendors that it is just like a hobby and they're not like super communicative, and it's just
even out of state vendors. We've noticed this a lot with, which is so fun and exciting to have like a new photographer from a different place, but they've never worked the venue. They've never worked with the team. So it just adds a new element.
Yeah. And they kind of come in and, you know, they're like, I'm from Florida and how we do it in Florida. And it's like, well, you're in Idaho.
Welcome. Okay. Red flags. Definitely we don't want ego with any vendor in your wedding. And like we talked about, sometimes this is hard from our end because we don't want to come in with an ego. Well, we are also the only vendor that's there from 10 a.m. until 11 p.m. And like Jane said, overseeing every single phase of your wedding from pre-setup. We oversee the makeup and hair team. We oversee like everything happening.
Like make sure dances are happening on time, grand entrance. And it's like, yes, that's not like our job is not to announce those things, but it's like, it's our job to make sure everything's happening when it's supposed to, because we know that like we need grand entrance to happen this because we know dinner is at this time and we know the caterers are waiting on us.
And the meat's already hot. Like it's all of these elements. So we always try to come in without ego. And like when people are always like, well, you tell me what to do. And it's like, no, this isn't like, we're not running the show. We are, like Jane said, overseeing it is the best way to explain it. Like our job here is to make sure that all of these items get done by the end of the day and that things flow.
Like how the bride and groom or, you know, couple wanted it to go.
Yeah.
But it's not our job to take over and be like, all right, DJ, like, listen to me.
Do this now.
You know, but then on the flip side of that, that's like the thing with like other vendors. If you hire a vendor who has a big ego, and like not to like attack the DJs here, but it's, I mean, it's usually it's like a DJ or like a photographer that we've run into egos a lot of times, and it's like a control thing. Or like, you know, they're like, I've done thousands of weddings and this is how I always do it. And like that sometimes where I struggle sometimes with DJs, it's like, I hear you and I'm sure that's great and whatever. But it's like, I've been planning with this couple for 12 months and they've never once said that they want to do it that way. So it's like kind of trying to find that balance of like, I want you to do your job and I want to respect that. And I don't want to have that ego of taking over and being like, well, I'm the planner and this is what we're doing. But I think that's where it's that like balance of like, they have to also meet you in the middle of like, you know, being on the same page and not overstepping and not making us be that micromanager in a way.
Being everyone calm.
Yeah.
Another big red flag is going to be lack of communication, whether that's with you as the couple or us as your planner and them not communicating with us. We just talked about a vendor that we've just had multiple issues with. And it's like, we always hear from every couple, like, oh, glad so-and-so's alive. I haven't heard from them in 4 months.
Right.
And it's always just such a bummer. It's like such a red flag to us. And those are the same vendors that don't respond to our timeline. Like when we send out the timeline, we ask for everyone to respond. We want to make sure that
Just
everyone's on the same page and confirm that they got it. And let us know, like, hey, I saw that I'm the photographer and you have me there at noon, but actually I'm not going to be there till 2. Like this is like we need to work those things out. So at noon on the wedding day, I'm not panicking that the photographer isn't there. Yeah. So when they don't respond to any party, like it just is a huge concern for us.
Right. And like, and again, like that just happened with a couple. Yeah. Where the DJ, there was like miscommunication. So I don't know why it's like so much DJ talk, but sorry, DJs, we love you. But there was miscommunication on a meeting and it's just like, again, there was like that that miscommunication there or lack of communication, whatever you want to say. And then it's like, now the bride is like worried that they're not going to show up to the wedding on time. And it's like, it's a valid concern. And so that's where I think it's like super important. And again, like it just, if there's lack of communication leading up, it's just going to cause more stress for the day of, because, we've had it where like, honestly, we're like, they've started toast or something has happened and like the photographer's not even in the room or whatever. And it's like, that's again too, where it makes it hard for us because it's like, we want to stay in our lane, but now you're jumping ahead and we're not ready for it. And so it's like, it just causes issues. So, I mean, communication is just huge.
Communication is key. That's what we always say.
Which kind of that leads into like vendors trying to control everything. Like certain vendors where it's like, like when you start to try to control every aspect of it, but you haven't like, they haven't been meeting and doing all these like pre things to like, knowing when, okay, this is when dinner's supposed to start, but they're going to set salads first or whatever it is. It's like vendors that are trying to control when they don't know what's going on can like cause a lot of stress.
Yeah. And if they haven't checked in with other vendors, like before we make a last call announcement at the bar, like we check in with like bride and groom, let them know this is happening. We check in with the bar. Then we go to let the DJ know, like, hey, can you please make a last call announcement? Right. Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, let's.
Oh, it's 9:30. We're supposed to make the last call. It's like, well, let's make sure the bar is ready. To make that announcement.
So there's just so many things that people don't see.
For sure. And another big red flag, I think, is like, that's not my job mentality. It's like one of my, I don't know if we've ever talked about this on here, but I tell every one of our staff members, if I ever hear you say that, I will rip your head off. No, just kidding. But like, I just don't think, yes, there are things that are not our job, but I don't like that mentality of like, if someone comes to us and asks us to like, I don't know, bust the tables. Like that's not my job, but like we will find a solution or whatever it is. Like when vendors have that mentality of like, they're not willing to like support each other. They're not willing to like, help with when there's not a second shooter and like hold the list for photos or whatever. And they just respond, well, that's not my job. I just don't like that mentality of like, you're not being a supportive team member. You're just
or even like that's not something we usually do. It's like, that's great. And it's not something we usually do either, but I would love for you to do it now.
Right. We're trying to be flexible here.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Like honestly, like taking out the trash is not our favorite thing to do, but a lot of venues around here don't like it's somebody's job.
And that means that it falls on the bride and groom, couple, parents.
Or the family. Yeah.
So it's at the end of the night. And that's not what they hired us for anyway. So it's like, okay, if this is something we have to do because the venue doesn't have a person for it,
then I guess we're going to do it.
We're going to do it happily.
Yeah.
And make sure everything gets taken out and clean up the bridal suite and do all the things that aren't in our job description, but that we're happy to get done to make sure that it was a good day all around and things are clean when we leave and all of that.
Yeah. So I think it's, I mean, I feel like you can sense that in vendors, like when you meet them, the kind of vendor or team player they're going to be. And so again, I think that's why it's important to meet with a lot of people and just make sure they match like your vibes and just, I don't know. I just
seem like collaborative.
Yeah.
And seem like they want to work with people. And it's like such a green flag when you hear people say like, oh, I love working with so-and-so. Like when you hear a vendor say that and you go through and they're like, oh, who'd you hire? And like, that's our favorite when we get on our like initial calls and I'm like, who have you hired so far? And they're like, start naming vendors that I love. And I'm like,
we're like, oh, this is great.
This is going to be the best wedding ever. It just like gets you so excited for that day because you know it's going to be a really smooth experience. People will get along, will respond to your communication.
Yeah.
It just makes for like a really good day.
And that, like this whole, that's not my job mentality just made me think again, this couple, we just had their first initial meeting and we were kind of talking about, they had met with a couple different planners and all this stuff. And, you know, we were just kind of diving through and I've heard this before just on like the planner side of things. It's like one of the main reasons, this is like one or two couples, honestly, in the last year that they hired us is because they were like, you guys were just so much more like, you included so much more and you were just so much more direct, but also like open to like, almost sounded more flexible and like willing to do more and go above and beyond and like, you know, include so much within your package that it made us just feel like we had that more like team work mentality versus like more rigid. And I think that's something to think about when you meet with your vendors. If there is more of that rigid, like this is what I do, this is what I don't do, you know, just kind of think about that, like process it a little, not to say that like your vendor should do everything, because again, there is a line and there are certain things that like shouldn't be certain vendors' jobs. But I just think, you know, kind of feeling vendors out. And if they are very rigid on things, just like consider
might not be
that.
a good fit. Yeah. For you or for your vendor team.
Yeah. So, I mean, all these like green and red flags, like why it matters. I mean, obviously it makes the timeline and the day go a lot smoother. Like we've talked about better guest experience, you know, as crazy as that may seem, like it is true. Like if your vendors get along and like we said, and it's going well, your guests are going to sense it.
Totally. And even like Jaden said, especially like the photographer, videographer relationship, like that's who your guests will interact with the most outside of your DJ because they're going to be getting their photos taken and be in that. And if you can tell that there's like some animosity, it is so awkward.
Totally.
And like getting your photo taken is already awkward.
Right.
So like,
well, and this couple said too, like when they're wanting a photographer, they want someone who's like nice because again, they had a bad guest experience with a vendor who was more rigid and was like yelling at people. And so that's like, I'm like, that's so sad that this bride's main concern is that her photographer is going to be mean, but it's true. I mean, that's what she remembers from that wedding.
Yeah.
Is this rigid, like not great experience with the photographer because she was probably stressed and didn't have a second shooter and she didn't have support from a coordinator or anybody.
No one was going to help her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes it really hard.
But yeah, and I mean, less stress, obviously. And then, you know, I think, again, if you know, with all these different red and green flags, if there's a lot more green flags, the vendors and they're working together, they're more willing to like pivot, like kind of, like we said, helping each other. Or like Allie said, be like, I know that's not normally your job, but would you be willing to help us out here because of X, Y, and Z or whatever? So I think it's just your vendors are more willing to like find solutions together if they're like, you know, cohesive and like working as a team, for sure.
Yeah. And it's a really important conversation for us because as planners, like we said, we don't want to come in with a big ego. We want people to know. And we try so hard with all of our communication and the way that we talk to people on their wedding day and like thanking them for, you know, dropping stuff off, helping out, like whatever their job is. Like we understand that it takes every vendor at that wedding to make it a good wedding.
Yeah.
And that everyone has to work together that day to make sure that things are executed in a way that the bride and groom want. And so it's just really important for us to get
Yeah.
hopefully make sure that people understand how important that is on the back end too.
Yeah. And that all vendors feel important. Like it is huge for us that it's like, I mean, like we've said, we're not the planner that likes to come in and have this big ego and be the boss. Like,
Yeah.
if we have to, don't get me wrong, like I'll pull that card at, if like a vendor's not doing what they're supposed to, but it's like our job is that we're all like, we want everyone to feel like, in a way, kind of how we want our couples to feel part of our family. That's how we feel about the vendors. Like we want everyone to feel like we are in this together. Like we want to support you and like make this day as smooth as possible. So let's like work together. I just think, is like a really big thing for us for sure.
Yeah. And like the best weddings that you go to as a guest that we've been to, that we've executed, are the ones that have that cohesive like feeling. Like we said, you can feel that. You can feel when you're being yelled at by a planner or a like stressed out vendor versus like every person that you meet, like that's not a guest, has a smile on their face and is like trying to make your day better too.
Right.
And like you'll feel that at the end of the day and your guests will remember that.
100%. So yeah, I mean, as you're booking your vendors, just like remember that the best weddings feel effortless because the vendors are all like quietly carrying like the weight of the wedding together. Like they're all working together. And I think that's like super important. So, I mean, take the time to really get good vendors. Don't worry about the design yet. Like really focus on that and pick vendors that feel right and fit like your vibe and that seem to like Allie said, want to work with other vendors to make it a great day. I think it's huge.
So good luck booking all your vendors.
Woohoo. Cheers.